What's up, everybody? Welcome to Botchilism. I'm Bob Botchie, your host. Today, we're going to talk about a little different topic than I'm typically talking about. I'm going to talk about all the rewards and the benefits and all the good stuff that comes from working in a restaurant. I talk a lot about the dark shit, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom. So I figured today I'd talk about some of the cool shit that happens when you work in a restaurant. Because it's not all doom and gloom. It's awesome. Working in a restaurant can be one of the most fun things you'll ever do. It's tedious and it's hard and it's tough work, but the rewards are great. You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking, tips and shit like that. There are a lot of rewards working in a restaurant. The hospitality industry as a whole is, it's based on giving you a good time. That's the whole point, is creating an experience for you, a good experience that you want to do again and again and again. I'm going to talk mostly about what I know, and that's the back of the house. So you pick a cuisine. That's what you do typically. You pick the type of cuisine you want to learn, and you research it, and you dive into it head first. I started with Pan Asian cuisine, so it was a little bit of all different types of Asian. That's where I got my start, and that's even cooler because I'm learning about 5 different cuisines at the same time. I'm learning Thai and Chinese and Japanese, and it's great. You know what I mean? Learning a little bit of everything, and that's how I got my start in the business. So right away I was just immersed in culture that I had no experience with whatsoever, and I learned slowly. I mean, that's the way you want to. You don't want to jump in feet first and then miss all the stuff that you'll miss if you just rush through it. You learn as much as possible. So you pick a cuisine, and you could spend decades learning everything you can about that cuisine, and that's a really cool aspect. Is you can never stop learning. Even once you master a cuisine, there's always something else to learn, and there's just no end to what you can learn about each cuisine. And then if you feel like you got to a point that you don't, not that you don't need to go further, but you want to learn something else, you just switch to a different cuisine. You know what I mean? Food is endless. There's no end to what you can learn. You learn, even if you just want to learn the basics of each cuisine, that can take a long time because you have to, the basics aren't the same in every cuisine. There's similarities, sure, but you focus on learning cuisine. Let's say you want to learn how to. Well, in the professional industry, it's a lot different. You don't really pick your cuisine. You pick a restaurant, and some if it's a cuisine that you're familiar with, you have a better chance of getting a job. So you try to you typically stay within your own cuisine until you want to branch out because you want to try something different. So you go to a different restaurant with a different cuisine and you start learning that cuisine. It's never ending. I went from Asian, I started in Asian, then I went right to Northern Italian, and it was worlds apart. It was like a whole new world to me. I went from dealing with woks and noodles to pasta and seafood. You know what I mean? It just blew my mind how different it was. It was a whole new experience. And, I did that every couple of years. I never stopped learning Asian cuisine, but that was on my own time at that point. Now I was focused on another cuisine professionally because I went to a different restaurant. And that's just how it works. Every time you go to a different restaurant, technically you go into a different cuisine because, a restaurant is based on a cuisine. It isn't a cuisine. You know what I mean? It's not a type of food. It's an Asian restaurant. It's not, you're not delving into the history of Asian cuisine in a restaurant. You do that on your own. You know what I mean? That's research and that's education, and even cooks read constantly. You know what I mean? You're constantly reading about everything. I read barbecue books, I read Asian books, I read books about the history of salt and how salt used to be worth more than gold. It's just trying to learn everything you can. And there's no end. There's millions of books out there about food. There's a new book every day about food, and even a professional chef is constantly reading, constantly learning, because you have to. You have to evolve. You know what I mean? You can't stay the same all the time. So you learn more. You either go deeper into that cuisine or you learn something new. So um, you start out by learning the basics. You see basic knife cuts is the first thing you're going to learn, and how it varies from cuisine to cuisine. If you start a new cuisine, the first thing you want to know is how to cut everything, because knife skills are important and they're different. I mean, the knife cuts in Japan are a lot different than the knife cuts in France, and that's just the way it is. So you start with the basics and you build knowledge from there, and basic cooking techniques, braising and all that. It varies from cuisine to cuisine. So you find repetition. You know what I mean? You find similarities, but you don't. It's not always going to be the same. So it's constantly learning new stuff. Even within the same cuisine, you're just constantly learning as a chef, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits of being in the restaurant industry is not only just learning food, but learning how to, produce food, how to produce food more efficiently. It's not just the cuisine itself. It's becoming better at organization and becoming better at scheduling, and is just constantly learning, constantly building this repertoire of things. Whether it's learning more about the food, or learning how to be a better manager, or you just constantly learning, and you're always building, always building. Um, we as chefs learn, as I said, by reading, but we learn by watching other chefs cook. Seeing the way they what techniques they have, and talking about techniques. You talk to other chefs, and you're constantly comparing stories, and watching the way other chefs work, because you might pick something up. There's something you would have never thought of, that you never learned from a chef before you, or from culinary school. And the interaction is a big part of learning, and learning how to become a better chef, which is the ultimate goal of being a chef. Is you always want to be better. you know you want to get better every day. And the beauty is, there's always going to be someone better than you. So there's always someone to look up to and someone to learn from. And the second you think that you're the best, like that, you're doing it wrong. You can be great at something, but you know how do you classify the best? It's tough. There are historical chefs that are classified as the best, but they're few and far between. You look at a body of work, and you see greatness, but you can never you never stop learning. It's There's always something new to learn, always. Like I said, even if it's how to run a restaurant better, or how to pick a better location, or you learn with every day. You learn something. So that's one of the first rewards of working in a kitchen and being in the hospitality industry, is always learning. Bartenders are always learning new drinks and new ways to infuse flavors into syrups, and there's always something to learn. And servers always learn how to be a better server. So the hospitality industry as a whole is you just never stop learning. And you can be the same thing with home cooks too. If you're a home cook and you want to be a better home cook, what do? You watch a YouTube video, or you read a cookbook, or social media, the Pinterest and all that stuff. There's always some new thing that you can learn as a home cook to make you a better cook. And I highly encourage that. I encourage you to do all the research you can possibly do. Don't just read a recipe. Read some history. Read why things are the way they are. And as a home cook, it can only help you to be a better cook if you research. Don't just go online and look up a recipe. Get cookbooks, and because cookbooks will tell you the history behind the dish, and why they do things the way they do, and stuff like that. But you know you can also do the social media. You're gonna learn a lot on social media about food, and plating. Plating's a big part of what social media is how to make a prettier plate. Because you eat with your eyes, you want the food to look good, so you want to learn how to do the best looking plate, even just for yourself. well, we say you eat with your eyes, but it's because it's the first thing you see, and if it looks tempting, you're going to want to eat it more. That's what we mean. You eat with your eyes. The more attractive a dish is, the more likely you are to eat it. And even at home, it's not bad to plate in a pretty fashion. You know, so some of the other benefits or rewards or whatever you want to call it of the restaurant industry is, you work hard and you work a lot, so it's hard to get recognition as a chef. You got to really work your ass off and put out the best product possible to get recognition. And the more you work, if your food is good, you'll get recognition. You'll get recognition from other chefs first, and that leads to other things. The other chefs, other people in the restaurant industry will go there and find out that it's good. So recognition first comes from other chefs and other people in the restaurant industry, and or even just customers who go to your restaurant and then go to someone else's restaurant and be like, oh, I was over here and it was great. So that's where your recognition starts. And then, as word of mouth grows, more people come to your restaurant, gets busier, you're putting out more food, word gets out, then you start getting critics. That's the first line of recognition, is usually like a food review. So if you get a little well known, the critics and the bloggers and all those people will talk about your coming restaurant. You know what I mean? If you get a little well known and you have recognition already, and you're about to open a place, they'll write articles and stuff about it. So that's really cool. If you're good, they're gonna write articles about how good you are. You might get on TV. You know what I mean? There's plenty of food review shows, local food review shows that love to go to places and hype up restaurants and chefs and food, and that helps business a lot. You know what I mean? You get on a TV show and people watch that TV show, business goes up quick. I've seen it happen. It's amazing. People watch that TV show and the TV show does a good job of making your food look good. People are going to go. People want to try that food. So, that's a benefit of getting some recognition, is you get on TV and your business is going to be going pretty good. Then, of course, the ultimate benefit is if you work your ass off and you get to be top of the game, there's awards. You know what I mean? There's recognition there. There's awards. There's local awards. There's James Beard Awards. There's Zagat Awards. You know what I mean? There's plenty of awards, and those obviously boost business immediately. You win an award, and people are going to flock to your restaurant. So you work your ass off. That's not why you do it, but it's awesome when it happens. You know what I mean? You don't go into food with the mindset of, I'm going to win a Michelin star or I'm going to win a James Beard Award. You just go in with the idea that you're going to make good food, and the awards that come with making really good food are just a bonus. That's really how it works. Your goal is to give people a good experience with food and hospitality and everything. It's not to, you don't do it to win awards. Or to me, I'm sure there are some people who do it just specifically so they can win awards, but I don't think I've ever met any. It's not like, do you become an actor? It is like that. Do you become an actor to win an Oscar, or do you become an actor to make good movies? You know what I mean? But my favorite good side of the hospitality industry was always charity. Chefs and restaurants and the hospitality industry in general are ridiculously generous when it comes to what little time they have off when it comes to charity. I did events and fundraisers constantly. Every chef that I know just constantly is involved with charity work. No Kid Hungry is a great charity that even all the top celebrity chefs are a part of. No Kid Hungry is a great charity. If you don't know about it, look into it. It's making sure that kids eat. And I personally worked with at-risk charity, charity for kids, at-risk kids, and it gave them a chance to get an education with culinary, because a lot of kids, it's a charity that helps out the less fortunate kids, and they give them scholarships, and they give them a leg up to get into the restaurant business, or culinary school, whichever path they want to go to. That's a big. I love working with that one. They do a ton of events, with all the chefs in the area get together and put together a dish just for the event, and people pay to get in, and all the money goes to the kids. So it's great. Charities are never, we never, as chefs, you never hesitate to give up your precious time off for a charity. It's just always just something restaurants are just good at, is charity and fundraising and events and stuff like that. That was always my favorite, getting together with the other chefs and, putting together a signature dish and, feeding 300 people for a good cause. It was just fun. You know what I mean? It didn't matter how tired you were. It didn't matter, how many times you hurt yourself that week. You just felt like you were doing something good. And I always ran whenever I got asked to do an event, I was there. I was always there. So it was always a good feeling to give back. And I've talked about it before, but the next thing I want to talk about is camaraderie. That's a huge, huge benefit of the hospitality industry, is the bond you build with your coworkers. I got into cooking late in life, so I've done everything, and I've never seen a bond between coworkers like I've seen in the hospitality industry. It's unbelievable, because you go through so much together. So, your coworkers become like family, and it's what gets you through, basically, is, with all the people around you having your back, and, having a bond with them. And you don't have a bond with everyone you work with, but the people you don't end up having a bond with usually don't last anyway. They just don't fit in that kitchen. It happens. The bond with management is different in the restaurant business too. It's not like an office where you're separated from management. Management's a different stage in the corporation, so to speak. In the hospitality industry, you're all working together, doing the same things. Management's completely different. Yes, they are scheduling and managing, but they're also, seating tables, greeting tables, clearing plates. They do a lot of the same things that everyone else does. There's just more, when a serve is done for the day, the management still goes on, and that's the only difference. Management's very hands-on in the hospitality industry, both sides, front of the house and back of the house. I mean, the management in the back of the house is the chef. You know what I mean? You're working with that person every day. Same in the front of the house. Your floor manager is interacting with the employees constantly. Constantly throughout a shift. So it's different than anything else I ever worked in. The bond with your whole establishment is unbelievable. I worked in mostly open kitchens, so the customer interaction was always one of my favorite parts of work. You know, when they could talk to you while you were cooking. It's yes, is it disturbing you in the beginning when you first start? You get used, you're not used to cooking while you're talking to someone. It's like like dinner theater. But you get used to it, and it's cool for the customer, but it's also cool for the cook, because then you can talk directly to the customer and get feedback, which is always huge, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? You get feedback. If you make bad food in an open kitchen, the customer can be right there and be like, "This sucks. Can I have another one?" You know what I mean? I mean, they say it to the server, but they can tell you too. I've worked in mostly open kitchens, so customer interaction was huge, because you can look at people, you can make eye contact with people, you can see their reaction to the food. Whereas if you're in a closed kitchen, you have to depend on the service to tell you if the people are enjoying the food. I've always preferred the open kitchen, because you watch the whole process. You're busy, but you can still look over and see, as a plate's getting delivered, it gives you a better grasp of, what's going on in the front of the house, how many people are there, you know, you can see if there's a table that hasn't had food on their table for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? You can gauge how the night's going to go by, watching the dining room. And then, even if, you can also gauge if you need to go over and talk to somebody. You know, if they look like they're having a really good time and the food's, you know, they look like they're really enjoying the food. You know, you as the chef, you pop out of the kitchen for a second and go over and see how everyone's doing. You know, table visits are awesome. Table visits are awesome for a chef. Even the bad ones, it's still awesome because you're getting feedback and you're getting interaction and you're getting to know what's good about your food and what's bad. So it's, you know, I always loved going to someone's table, even if it was for something wrong. You know what I mean? It's getting interaction with the customers was always my favorite because, you know, you don't get to talk to many people when you're in the kitchen. You talk to the people in the kitchen, you talk to the servers and the managers. So you know, but that's it, you know. So going to talk to someone about whether or not they enjoyed the food was always a highlight. Always a highlight. You know, especially when they like the food. I mean, that just goes without saying. But going to the table and having someone rave about the food that you spent all that time creating is there's like nothing better than it. You know what I mean? And now a word from our sponsor. What's up, kid? Do you love your hometown and want to represent it to the fullest? Of course you do, bud. Whether you're going to the spa, running the dunks, or driving down the Cape for the weekend, Boston Bread is the perfect gear to keep you looking wicked fresh, dude. Go to bostonbread.com right now and enter the offer code Botchilism and get your first order. That's BOTCHILISM for 10% off. And remember the motto, guy: Boston born, Boston bred, and when we die, we'll be Boston dead. So now I'm going to do a segment that I like to call Diners Decorum. I did this before, briefly. I want to use my platform to be able to make people better customers. You know, the biggest complaint I always heard from customers was from staff was how much this customer sucked or how much that customer sucked. And it's just simple things that we in the restaurant industry just take for granted that, you know, someone who doesn't do this for a living would never think of, you know what I mean? So I want to make people better diners so that everyone's enjoying the experience, not just the customers. It's nothing worse. Nothing can bring a night to a halt worse than a shitty table. You know, they can throw the whole night off. So I'll do this often, but, you know, I want to talk about a couple of things tonight. So first thing I want to talk about is reservations. All right, reservations are a must. You're guaranteed a table. You know, if you walk in, you're not guaranteed a table. So I'm a big proponent of reservations. You guaranteed a table. You know what time you're going to eat. You know, and it helps keep the restaurant on track. It gives a basic idea. The first thing we did every day was when we first got in would be to check the reservations, and it gives you a basic idea of how many people you have to cook for that night. So, and it gives the restaurant validation in terms of knowing that there's going to be someone in that seat. So reservations are good. You know what I mean? It's good for you. It's good for the restaurant. I always make a reservation when I'm going out. Be there on time. That's very important. If you make a reservation, make sure you're there on time. Things happen. So if you're not going to be there on time, call the restaurant. They're understanding. You know, it happened to me a couple weeks ago. We got in a car that went the wrong way and we were 10 minutes late. So we, you know, called 5 minutes before we were supposed to be there and said, hey, listen, probably not going to be there for about 15 minutes. And it wasn't a problem. They were happy to know that, you know, we weren't just bailing on a reservation. So once you made your reservation, you show up. I don't want to sound like a dick, but try to order promptly. You know, I'm not saying rush through your dinner, but, you know, you don't have to order everything all at once, but try to get, you know, obviously when the server comes over, they'll work with you and everything, but, you know, if the server has to come over 3 times and ask you if you know what you want yet, you're fucking up that whole night. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying rush through your dinner, but don't spend 45 minutes talking and having never looked at the menu. You know what I mean? That happens a lot. People get in. I understand it's a social interaction. It's a social event, but there's decorum, as I said, and you don't want to. You can talk while you're reading the menu. I mean, I'm not saying don't have a good time, but, you know, don't spend all night talking to your friends without ever having picked up the menu, because, you know, the server's trying to get the food in, the kitchen's trying to get the food out. You know, you can order drinks right away. You know, and while we have it set up, they'll come over and say, "Can I start you off with a drink, or can I start you off with an appetizer?" And, you know, the server usually tries to walk you through the whole process anyway, but just go with the flow. You know, try not to disrupt the flow, so to speak. Try to order in a prompt manner. I'm not saying right away, but don't take 2 hours before you put in your appetizers. You know, eat first. Eat first, party later. Um, and let the server guide you, because that's what their job is. And if they're not guiding you, then talk to them about it. Say, hey, we haven't put in our entrees yet. Can we put in our entrees? Or, it's a two-way street. You let them do their job, and if they're not doing their job, then you tell them you're not happy with the job they're doing. They'll always ask you if you want dessert. You don't have to, worry about dessert, but, don't spend all night trying to decide either. It's just not good for the flow of business. Another big problem is large parties. Do not walk in. Do not. Large parties typically, like, anything more than six and up is considered a large party. So don't walk. Get a reservation, and do it like a week in advance, because most restaurants can't just sit a table of 6 or 8 or 12. You know what I mean? 12 people walking in, you're not going to get a table. And even if they can facilitate seating 12 people together, it's going to take a while to rearrange tables. And so make a reservation and make it a week in advance. Just give them fair warning that, listen, we got a shitload of people coming to your restaurant. We're really excited about it, and give them some notice so they can make it work. Otherwise, you're just sending everything off the rails. And if you're going to have a big party, I'm not like 6, but if you're going to have like 10, 12, 14 people, just factor in a tip into the whole thing. Some restaurants do that automatically. It's like an 18% gratuity included in the bill if you're over like 10 people. But if they don't do that, you should do it. It's don't tip, tip accordingly if you're gonna have a big party, because big parties are hard to deal with, because it's unless it's the server's only table, they have other tables that they got to deal with, and trying to get 12 orders at the same time while dealing with 4 other tables is, it's tough. So the whole thing has to be adjusted. So, tip accordingly. Big problem is, and again, it's, it's not a problem for you, but it can be a big problem for the restaurant. It's splitting checks. If you have 4 people at a table and everyone wants to pay their equal percent, splitting the check 4 ways, it's fine. But when you sit down, let them know right away, hey, listen, we're going to split the checks. Because then the server has already got it in their mind that, hey, they're going to split the checks. So, then they keep that in mind, so that if you don't tell them and you hand them the check, that, they give you the check and you put 4 cards in there, and then you say, hey, we want to split this 4 ways. There's 600 million things on that server's mind, and then they're going over to the POS and they're trying to split it, and they weren't prepared for it, so it doesn't go as smoothly as it could if you just said, hey, listen, we're going to split the check 4 ways as soon as you sit down. They have it in their mind, and it's not going to derail them at all. And if there's more than 4 people, don't split the checks. There's an easy way to get around that. There's cash transferring apps all over the place now. There's tons of options. So you have one person in the party pay for the meal, and then everyone sends money to that person. Then you're not splitting the check. You're not, there's a chance of cards getting mixed up. It's a big pain in the ass. So send the money to one person, have that one person pay. That's typically what I do if I'm with a big party. One person pays, and everyone else sends them their percentage of the money. So just makes everything smoother, and if your server's not stressed out, you're going to have a better experience. And doing things to make sure that you're not putting extra pressure on your server is just going to make your meal a whole lot better. And then don't go to a restaurant with the intention of getting shit-faced. I understand overconsumption can happen, but it's a restaurant. It's about food. It's about a dining experience. It's not about getting fall down drunk. It's just basic. This bars, okay? You want to get shit-faced, go to a bar. That's what bars are for. The whole point of a bar is to get you shit-faced. Restaurants to give you food and a good time. So try not to over-consume. I mean, it happens, it's going to happen. But don't go there with the intent of, I'm going to get as shit-faced as humanly possible, because that's not what a restaurant is all about. So, if you get a little drunk, you get a little drunk, but don't get fall down drunk in a restaurant. It's just, just bad taste. And that's about it for today. It's good to talk about some good stuff other than all the dark shit that I talk about all the time. And, join me again next time. And I'll see you then. Follow us on social media. The Instagram is Botchilism. Botchilism. Same for the TikTok, Botchilism. And if you have stories about the restaurant industry that you want to share with us, I'd love to hear them. Email us at botchilismpodcast@gmail.com. Maybe I'll read your story. Maybe we'll have you on. Maybe we'll have you on to tell your own story. A bad kitchen injury, or a bad shift as a server, or I'm sure bartenders have thousands of stories to tell. So give us shoot us an email, and we'll put them on the air.